It was February 27th, 2010. On a random Saturday afternoon at approximately 4 o'clock, my husband of nearly 22 years approached me stating there was something he wanted to discuss with me, but not in front of the children. I was in the kitchen preparing a late afternoon snack for the kids. Earlier that day, we had argued. It was the same argument, the same conversation we've been having for months. The kids, our marriage, our family business, our finances, and our future. I followed Gabe down the hallway, and as soon as we got to our bedroom, he turned to face me, and I realized that there was a foreign object in the front pocket of his hooded sweatshirt. I realized it was a handgun, a .45 caliber H&K. Gabe grabbed me and shoved me into the very back corner of our walk-in closet. I was terrified. I screamed in a way I didn't know I was capable of. Sheer, unintelligible, high-pitched terror. I remember him saying, "All of this is going to stop now," and then he fired the gun. The first bullet went through my left foot. In shock, I yelled, "Oh my God, you just shot me." Immediately after, I crumbled to the floor. Everything happened so fast that it took me several seconds to realize that Gabe had fired a nearly fatal second shot that blew out 1.5 inches of my femur and grazed my femoral artery, causing me to collapse. With my face buried in the carpet and my mind reeling from what had just happened, a third bullet entered my right hip and exited my groin. The next thing I heard was the sound of my husband fiddling with the gun, checking the chamber, and I started praying. I was terrified that the next bullet would end up lodged in the back of my head. Instead, he put the gun in his own mouth, fired, and fell to the floor. I lay there, frozen in fear, holding my breath, and then I heard him die. I spent a month in the hospital, a month in a wheelchair. Eventually, I graduated to a walker and a cane. I was weak and fragile, and therefore spent a full year in physical therapy, regaining strength, learning to navigate stairs, and trying to regain some semblance of balance. There were many surprises at his death. He left our family business with over $25 million of debt, a house that was upside down on the mortgage, and he had borrowed against his life insurance, leaving us with very few resources to cover college expenses for our 4 children. For 2 years, I fought to save the business we started together, but it was a lost cause. Bottom line was our business was a house of cards that eventually came tumbling down. In 2012, I decided it was time to pack up and start a life elsewhere, a place where people didn't know my backstory and a place where we could rebuild. For the past 8 years, I've lived in North Dallas, and today I am tremendously thankful and have a very blessed life. For years, I couldn't imagine ever feeling these things, but by just getting out of bed every day, by just showing up, and by just going through the motions to get through each 24-hour period, I eventually started to shift my mindset from victim to survivor, and the shift was transformational. I am happy, I laugh, and there is joy. As I look back, I never thought that this could happen to someone like me. Domestic violence is something that only happens to those people over there. Yet, according to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women experience severe intimate partner physical violence. Furthermore, on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. And the presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%. In every corporate position I've had in the last 10 years where I have shared my story with a colleague, I've had a coworker come up to me and say, "This happened to me too." The Institute for Women's Policy Research estimates that the economic impact of intimate partner violence costs the U.S. society $5.8 billion annually in healthcare costs and productivity losses. This is just insane. For goodness sake, it is the year 2020. And don't we know by now that we aren't supposed to hit our wives, let alone shoot them? The biggest travesty for me would be failing to use my story to help other women that deal with the shame, the self-blame, the self-doubt, and the embarrassment that comes with leaving an abusive relationship. I personally believe that we as women do ourselves a disservice by not talking about it. And by not sharing our personal experience of living in an abusive relationship, we live in isolation, falsely believing that we are alone. Yet if it's 1 in 4, it is statistically impossible that I or you are the only one living in this nightmare. Look, everyone goes through crap, and we all live in a world of crazy at some point in our life. So when you get through your crazy, talk to others, share your journey so you can lift up those that may need it the most. For many years, I didn't realize that I was living in an abusive household. It took me getting shot and nearly dying to realize how bad my own situation was. In fact, many times, as was in my case, abusive relationship starts with the softer abuses, such as emotional and financial abuse. The physical piece doesn't manifest until much later, when the perpetrator can no longer manipulate and control their partner by the softer infractions. I've questioned many times why I lived over the past decade. Only our Maker knows the answer to that. People die every day from injuries far less severe than what I went through. And in recent years, this really hit me hard. And I have learned that it is so important that we cherish each and every day we have here on this earth. In closing, if any of this spoke to you, I challenge you to the following. Shed the victim mentality and pivot to think like a survivor. Stop being ashamed of your past and reach out to others who might benefit from hearing about your journey. Live each day to the fullest, because tomorrow is never guaranteed. And finally, perhaps the biggest lesson that I have learned through this journey is that success is not defined by what you have achieved, but instead by what you have overcome. Thank you.